Wild pigs are also out of control, much closer in Canada.
And while a new DNR report found they're not here yet, Chris Hrafsky shows us why officials say it's imperative to keep them out before it's too late.
A Texas rancher checked his security camera and couldn't believe what he saw. Hundreds of shadowy figures moving like an army through his land. By morning, $50,000 were gone. Overnight. But here's what nobody's telling you. These aren't just wild pigs. They're hybrids. Part domestic pig, part European wild boar. They're smarter than dogs, built like tanks, and they're breeding faster than we can kill them. 2.6 million of them are destroying Texas right now. And the footage reveals something absolutely terrifying. We might already be too late.
Very hard to get rid of them. They're very elusive. They're very smart animals. So that is why, we tell people to don't shoot, report, because we do have trained people that can actually get rid of these pigs versus scaring them and educating them, making them run off.
To understand what's happening today, we need to go back to 1493. That's when Christopher Columbus made his second voyage to the Americas. Among the supplies he brought to the West Indies were domestic pigs. The reasoning was simple and practical. Pigs were a convenient source of fresh meat for sailors on long voyages. They could be kept alive on ships, they didn't take up much space, and they could eat almost anything. Nobody at the time had any idea they were setting in motion an ecological disaster that would still be unfolding more than 500 years later. The thing about pigs is they're remarkably good at surviving. They're intelligent, adaptable, and they reproduce quickly. So when some of these animals inevitably escaped or were deliberately released, they didn't just die off in the wilderness, they thrived. Fast forward to 1539 and a Spanish explorer named Hernando de Soto arrived in what is now Florida. He brought along his own herd of domestic pigs, planning to use them as a mobile food source as he explored the interior of North America. Historical records tell us he started with around 13 pigs. By the time his expedition ended, that number had grown to over 700, and not all of them made it back. The pigs that escaped from these early Spanish expeditions found themselves in an environment with plenty of food, plenty of water, and crucially, very few natural predators. By the late 1500s, feral pigs had established populations across parts of what would become Texas. Documents from 1598 actually mention Spanish explorers trading pig products with Native American populations, which tells us these animals had become common enough to be part of the local economy. These early feral pigs, descendants of domestic Spanish breeds, were tough animals. They had to be to survive in the wild. They developed the ability to find food in diverse environments, from forests to grasslands. They learned to avoid predators. They adapted to temperature extremes. Over generations, natural selection favored the strongest, smartest, and most resourceful individuals. But these Spanish hogs, problematic as they were, weren't the real catastrophe. That came much later. In the 1930s, wealthy landowners and hunting enthusiasts in Texas decided they wanted a more exciting game to hunt. Domestic pigs that had gone feral weren't considered challenging enough, so they came up with what seemed like a clever idea at the time. They would import wild boars from Europe and Asia, specifically Russian boars and other Eurasian varieties. These animals were larger, more aggressive, and more difficult to hunt. They seemed like the perfect solution for sportsmen looking for a challenge. The plan was to keep these imported boars in fenced hunting preserves. The problem was that wild boars are incredibly strong and determined animals. Fences that worked perfectly well for cattle or deer turned out to be inadequate for containing these European imports. The boars escaped, and when they did, they encountered the existing populations of feral hogs that had been living in Texas for centuries. What happened next was a biological perfect storm. The escaped Eurasian boars began breeding with the descendants of those original Spanish pigs. This wasn't just two similar animals mating. This was the combination of two very different genetic lines, each bringing its own evolutionary advantages to the table. The domestic pigs, even after generations in the wild, still retained some characteristics that made them prolific breeders. They reached sexual maturity quickly and could produce large litters multiple times a year. The Eurasian boars, meanwhile, brought size, aggression, and sophisticated survival instincts honed over thousands of years in the harsh environments of Europe and Asia. The hybrid offspring of these two populations inherited the best survival traits from both parent species. Biologists call this hybrid vigor, and it's a well-documented phenomenon in biology. These new hybrid pigs were larger than the Spanish ferals, sometimes reaching weights that would have been impossible for pure domestic pigs. They were more aggressive and better able to defend themselves against the few predators that might consider attacking them. They were smarter with enhanced problem-solving abilities. And crucially, they maintained the high reproduction rate of domestic pigs while gaining the disease resistance and environmental adaptability of wild boars. The result is what some researchers now call a super pig. It's not a term meant to be complimentary. These animals represent a genetic combination specifically suited for invasion and proliferation. They can survive in almost any environment Texas has to offer. They can reproduce at rates that make population control nearly impossible. And they're intelligent enough to learn from their encounters with humans, which makes them increasingly difficult to manage. Back in the 1980s, feral hogs occupied roughly 23% of Texas counties. Today, they've spread to 99% of the state. Only El Paso County in the far west remains free of them, and wildlife officials aren't confident that will last. The current population sits at around 2.6 million animals, though some estimates suggest it could be even higher. Population counts for wild animals are notoriously difficult to pin down with precision, but every assessment agrees on one thing: there are a lot of them, and the numbers keep growing. Climate patterns are actually helping the hogs expand their range even further. As temperatures shift and weather patterns change, these animals are moving westward into regions that were previously too arid to support them. The Chihuahuan Desert, for instance, seems like an unlikely habitat for an animal most people associate with muddy wallows and dense forests. But hogs are proving remarkably capable of adapting to desert conditions. They congregate around water sources, which become concentration points for significant environmental damage. In these lower density areas, you might only find 1 or 2 hogs per square mile, but where water is available, that number increases dramatically. One factor that's accelerated the spread is human assistance. Not everyone views feral hogs as a problem. For some landowners, they represent a hunting opportunity, a source of income from hunters willing to pay for the chance to shoot them. There have been documented cases of people illegally trapping hogs in one location and releasing them in another, essentially seeding new populations in previously clear areas. This human-aided dispersal has made the spread of feral hogs much faster than it would have been through natural movement alone. The reproductive capacity of these animals is genuinely staggering. A female pig, called a sow, can reach sexual maturity at just 6 months old. She can produce 2 litters per year, with each litter containing anywhere from 6 to 12 piglets. If you do the mathematics, a single sow could theoretically be responsible for over 20 offspring in a single year. And those offspring can start reproducing within months. Without significant natural predation, the population can grow exponentially. Texas has few predators capable of taking down an adult feral hog. A mountain lion might attempt it, but they're rare enough that they don't significantly impact hog populations. Coyotes will occasionally kill young piglets, but they avoid adult hogs. Black bears, where they exist in Texas, generally don't consider hogs worth the risk of injury. This absence of natural population controls means the only real check on hog numbers is starvation, disease, or human intervention. What we're looking at today is the culmination of 5 centuries of biological experimentation, most of it unintentional. A colonial food source from the 1400s has combined with an ill-advised hunting import from the 1930s to create an animal perfectly designed to take over Texas, and they're succeeding. When you actually see a feral hog up close, the first thing that strikes you is just how powerfully built these animals are. They're not the pink, rotund farm pigs that most people picture when they think of swine. These are muscular, dangerous animals that look more like they belong in a natural history museum display about prehistoric megafauna than wandering around modern Texas. Male feral hogs, called boars, typically weigh between 130 and 220 pounds. That's already substantial, roughly the size of a large adult human. But some trophy individuals can reach 400 pounds or more. Imagine an animal that heavy, built low to the ground with a powerful body covered in coarse, bristly hair, running at you at full speed. It's genuinely frightening. And they're fast too. A feral hog can reach speeds of up to 30 miles per hour in short bursts, which is faster than most people can run. Their physical weaponry is particularly notable. Both males and females have tusks, though they're more pronounced in males. These aren't just slightly pointed teeth, They're genuine weapons that can grow up to 3 inches long and continue growing throughout the animal's life. Boars use these tusks for fighting with other males, for defending themselves against threats, and for digging. The tusks are made of the same material as regular teeth, but they're positioned and shaped in a way that makes them extremely effective at slicing through flesh. Hunters and wildlife officers have documented numerous injuries caused by hog tusks, and they're treated with considerable respect by anyone who works around these animals regularly. Perhaps even more remarkable is what's called the shoulder shield. This is a thick layer of tissue that develops over the shoulders and chest of mature boars. It's composed of hardened cartilage and scar tissue that builds up over time from fighting and general wear. This shield can be over an inch thick in large boars, and it serves as natural armor. Small caliber bullets have been known to fail to penetrate this shield effectively, which has significant implications for anyone trying to control these animals. You can't just assume a shot to the chest will bring down a large boar the way it might with other animals of similar size. Female hogs, called sows, are somewhat smaller than males, typically ranging from 110 to 180 pounds. But don't let the size difference fool you into thinking they're less formidable. In the social structure of feral hogs, females are actually the leaders. Hogs travel in family groups called sounders, which are matriarchal units led by a dominant sow. These groups typically consist of several related females, their offspring, and sometimes young males who haven't yet struck out on their own. Adult males usually travel alone, only joining sounders during breeding season. The intelligence of feral hogs is one of the aspects that makes them such effective invaders and so difficult to control. Research suggests they're at least as intelligent as domestic dogs, and possibly more so in certain problem-solving contexts. They learn from experience remarkably quickly. If you set a trap and manage to catch most of a sounder, but one individual escapes, that pig will remember. It will recognize similar traps in the future and actively avoid them. It will also communicate this wariness to other members of its group through behavior and possibly through scent marking. There are numerous accounts from wildlife managers and hunters about hogs learning to recognize specific sounds associated with danger. They learn what a helicopter sounds like and will flee to heavy cover when they hear one approaching. They learn to associate certain vehicle sounds with hunters. Some individuals have even been observed apparently learning to avoid certain areas after witnessing other hogs being shot there. This adaptive intelligence means that control methods that work initially often become less effective over time as the surviving animals learn and adjust their behavior. Their adaptability extends to habitat as well. Feral hogs are what biologists call habitat generalists, meaning they don't require one specific type of environment to survive. Texas is ecologically diverse, ranging from the piney woods and wetlands of the east to the arid desert regions of the west, with grasslands, brushlands, and everything in between scattered throughout. Feral hogs can be found in essentially all of these environments. As long as there's some form of cover to hide in and access to water, hogs can establish a population. Their physical appearance helps with this adaptability. Their coats can vary in color, from solid black to reddish brown, to spotted patterns that combine multiple colors. This variation isn't just aesthetic. It provides effective camouflage in different environments. A dark hog can virtually disappear in shadowy forest undergrowth. A reddish-brown individual blends remarkably well into dry grassland. Even experienced outdoors people have reported nearly stepping on large hogs that they simply didn't see until the animal moved. In terms of range and movement, feral hogs cover impressive distances in their search for food and water. In the more arid regions of Texas, a female might roam over 8,000 acres, while males can range across 12,000 acres or more. That's roughly 12 to 18 square miles. However, when resources are abundant, particularly food and water, hogs will pack into much smaller areas at much higher densities. This concentration is when the most severe environmental damage occurs. The diet of a feral hog is about 80% plant-based material. They consume roots, tubers, fruits, acorns, and various other plant matter, depending on what's seasonally available. To access many of these food sources, particularly roots and tubers, hogs use their snouts to dig up soil. This behavior is called rooting, and it's one of the primary ways hogs alter their environment. A hog's snout is an incredibly effective digging tool with strong muscles and a cartilaginous disc at the end that works like a shovel. A single sounder of hogs can root up an entire pasture in a single night. The aftermath looks disturbingly similar to what you'd expect from machinery or even explosives. The ground is churned up, vegetation is destroyed, and what was once level ground becomes a chaotic landscape of divots and piles of displaced soil. In high-density areas, studies have shown that hogs can disturb up to 20% of the soil surface. This isn't minor surface scratching. They can dig down 6 inches or more, completely destroying the root systems of plants and fundamentally altering the soil structure. But hogs aren't purely herbivorous. They're opportunistic omnivores, which means they'll eat almost anything they can find or catch. This includes invertebrates like grubs and beetles, small vertebrates, including rodents and ground nesting birds, and even carrion. They're not particularly skilled hunters in the way a cat or canine predator would be, but they're good at finding vulnerable prey. A nest of baby rabbits or a clutch of bird eggs represents an easy meal, and hogs will actively search for these food sources. This omnivorous diet makes them what ecologists call ecosystem engineers, though not in a positive sense. They fundamentally change the environment around them, but in ways that benefit themselves while harming most other species. They reduce plant diversity by eating seeds and destroying seedlings. They reduce animal diversity by consuming eggs and young animals. And they alter soil chemistry and water flow patterns through their rooting behavior. The reproduction rate of feral hogs is genuinely alarming from a population management perspective. In mild climates like much of Texas, sows can breed year-round. They don't have a specific mating season the way many wild animals do. The gestation period is about 115 days, just under 4 months. Before giving birth, a pregnant sow will create a shallow nest, often in dense vegetation or under brush piles. These nests provide some protection for the vulnerable newborn piglets. When the piglets are born, they have distinctive striped patterns, light stripes on darker bodies that make them look a bit like little watermelons. This striping provides camouflage in grass and broken shadows. The piglets are weaned in just 4 to 6 weeks, which is remarkably fast compared to many mammals. This short dependency period means the mother can potentially breed again very quickly after giving birth. The hybrid vigor of these animals makes the young particularly hardy. Infant mortality rates, while not insignificant, are lower than you'd expect for a wild animal producing such large litters. Combined with the lack of natural predators capable of taking down adult hogs, this means population growth can reach 30% per year in areas where hogs aren't being actively controlled. That's not a sustainable situation from a management perspective. It means that even significant control efforts may only slow the population growth rather than actually reducing numbers. One important distinction for people in Texas to understand is the difference between feral hogs and a native species called the javelina, also known as the collared peccary. Javelinas are much smaller, typically weighing only 40 to 60 pounds. They have straight tusks that point downward rather than curving outward like a hog's tusks. They also have a distinctive white collar of hair around their shoulders, which gives them one of their common names. Critically, javelinas are native to the region and are protected by hunting regulations. You can't just shoot one the way you can with a feral hog. The two species occupy some similar habitats, so being able to tell them apart is important for legal and conservation reasons. Identifying feral hog activity is relatively straightforward once you know what to look for. The rooting is the most obvious sign. You'll see banana-shaped divots and overturned soil where hogs have been feeding. Near water sources, you'll find wallows, which are muddy depressions where hogs roll to cool off since they can't sweat effectively. These wallows often have a distinctive smell, a combination of mud and hog waste. On trees and posts, you'll see rub marks where hogs have scratched against rough bark to relieve itching. These rub marks typically appear 2 to 3 feet off the ground and will have mud, coarse hair, and sometimes skin debris stuck to them. Tracks are another clear indicator. Hog tracks are distinctly different from deer tracks, which are the most commonly confused species. Hog tracks show 2 main toes with 2 smaller dew claw marks behind them, and they're broader and rounder than the more pointed tracks of deer. A mature hog track can be 3 to 5 inches wide, which is substantial. What we're dealing with is an animal that combines the reproductive capacity of domestic livestock with the survival instincts and physical capabilities of a wild predator. They're smart enough to learn and adapt, tough enough to survive in diverse environments, and numerous enough to overwhelm most control efforts. It's a biological profile specifically suited for invasion, which is exactly what we're witnessing across Texas. The economic impact of feral hogs in Texas is staggering, and it's getting worse every year. Current estimates put the annual agricultural damage at around $52 million for Texas alone. When you look at the entire United States, that figure jumps to approximately $1.5 billion. Texas bears the brunt of this damage simply because it has the largest feral hog population in the country. But these numbers, as large as they are, only tell part of the story. They don't capture the full extent of what these animals are doing to the land, the water, and the wildlife. Consider what it's like to be a farmer or rancher dealing with this problem. You've spent months preparing your fields, investing in seeds, fertilizer, irrigation equipment, and fuel. You've put thousands of dollars and countless hours of labor into growing crops like corn, wheat, peanuts, or melons. Then one morning you drive out to check on your fields and discover that a group of hogs came through during the night. The crops aren't just damaged. In many cases, they're completely destroyed. The hogs haven't just eaten what they wanted, they've trampled through the fields, uprooted plants, and scattered debris everywhere. Some farmers report losing entire fields in a single night. The financial losses can be devastating. Individual farmers have reported annual losses exceeding $200,000 due to hog damage. For a family farm operating on relatively thin profit margins, this kind of loss can mean the difference between staying in business and bankruptcy. It's not an exaggeration to say that feral hogs are destroying generational family businesses that have been operating for decades. The damage extends beyond just the crops themselves. Hogs will destroy irrigation equipment, chewing through plastic pipes and damaging sprinkler systems. They'll tear up fences, creating gaps that allow livestock to escape. When harvesting equipment encounters the hardened mounds of soil left behind by hog rooting, it can cause serious mechanical damage. A combine harvester hitting these obstacles can suffer broken blades or damaged mechanisms, resulting in repair bills that run into thousands of dollars and delays that can ruin time-sensitive harvests. Livestock operations face their own set of problems. Hogs compete directly with cattle for grazing land. They eat the grass that ranchers need to feed their herds, which means ranchers can support fewer animals on the same amount of land. This reduces productivity and income. But the competition for resources isn't the worst of it. Feral hogs are omnivores and opportunistic predators. They will kill and eat newborn livestock. Calves, lambs, and kids are all vulnerable. Nationally, livestock producers lose approximately $85 million per year to predation, with feral hogs accounting for a significant portion of these losses. Finding a dead calf that's been killed and partially eaten by hogs is a grim reality that many ranchers have to face. The problem isn't confined to rural areas either. Feral hogs are increasingly moving into suburban environments, causing damage in places you wouldn't expect. They're tearing up golf courses, destroying carefully maintained turf in a matter of hours. Football fields and soccer pitches are being damaged. Front lawns in residential neighborhoods are being rooted up as hogs search for grubs and earthworms in the soil. Homeowners are waking up to find their expensive landscaping destroyed overnight. The cost of repairing this damage falls on homeowners, schools, and municipal governments, spreading the economic burden across communities. Research from Texas A&M University has tried to quantify the effectiveness of control efforts. One study looked at the removal of 36,000 hogs from nearly 2 million acres of land. That sounds like significant progress, and it represents enormous effort and expense. But even with this level of intervention, annual harvest estimates across the state are around 750,000 animals. While that's a substantial number, it's not enough to reduce the population. The hogs are breeding faster than they're being removed. It's a sobering realization. All that work, all that money spent, and the population continues to grow. Speaking of money spent, the cost of fighting feral hogs adds another $500 million to the state's annual burden. This includes the cost of traps and trapping equipment, ammunition, labor for wildlife management professionals and contractors, fencing materials, and various other control measures. This is money that could be going toward other agricultural improvements, infrastructure, or conservation efforts. Instead, it's being spent just to slow down an invasion that shows no signs of stopping. The environmental damage caused by feral hogs is in many ways even more concerning than the economic costs. Economics can be measured in dollars, and dollars can potentially be recovered. Environmental damage, particularly to soil and water systems, can take decades or even centuries to reverse, and some damage may be permanent. Soil health is one of the primary casualties. When hogs root up the ground, they're not just creating unsightly divots. They're fundamentally disrupting the soil structure that's taken years to develop. Healthy soil has a complex architecture with spaces for air and water, networks of fungal threads connecting plant roots, and layers of organic matter that provide nutrients. Hog rooting destroys all of this. The loosened soil is then highly vulnerable to erosion. When rain falls, instead of soaking into stable ground, it washes the disrupted soil away into streams and rivers. Studies have shown that in areas with significant hog activity, soil erosion rates can increase dramatically. The eroded soil doesn't just disappear, it ends up in waterways, where it's called sediment. This sediment clouds the water, reducing light penetration, which affects aquatic plants. It settles on stream beds, smothering fish eggs and the invertebrates that fish feed on. It fills in the spaces between rocks where many aquatic organisms live. Over time, heavy sedimentation can actually change the physical structure of streams and rivers. Research has also demonstrated that hog rooting can reduce the soil's water absorption capacity by up to 50%. This means that when it rains, less water soaks into the ground to recharge aquifers and provide moisture for plants. Instead, more water runs off the surface, causing increased flooding downstream and leaving less water available during dry periods. It's a cascade of negative effects that impacts the entire watershed. Water quality suffers in more direct ways as, well, feral hogs spend a lot of time in and around water. They need it for drinking, and they use it to cool off since they can't regulate their body temperature through sweating the way humans can. They create wallows in muddy areas near ponds and streams, and they defecate directly into water sources. Studies conducted in Alabama found that in watersheds with feral hog populations, fecal bacteria levels were 40 times higher than in similar watersheds without hogs. That's not a small increase. It's a massive contamination problem. This bacterial contamination has serious implications. For wildlife, it means that fish, amphibians, and other aquatic organisms are living in polluted conditions that can cause disease and death. For humans, it means that water sources that might have been safe for recreation or that feed into drinking water systems are now contaminated. Swimming in or drinking from water downstream of hog activity carries real health risks, including exposure to E. coli and other harmful bacteria. The impact on native wildlife is equally troubling. Feral hogs are voracious consumers of plant seeds and nuts, particularly acorns. In many Texas ecosystems, acorns are a critical food source for wildlife, especially white-tailed deer. In the fall, deer need to consume large quantities of high-energy food, like acorns, to build up fat reserves for winter. When hogs eat the majority of the acorn crop, deer are left without this crucial resource. The result can be increased deer mortality during winter, reduced reproductive success the following spring, and overall decline in deer populations. Ground nesting birds are particularly vulnerable. Species like quail, turkeys, and various songbirds nest on or very near the ground, making their eggs and chicks accessible to hogs. Research has documented nest failure rates exceeding 11%, directly attributable to hog predation. That might not sound like much, but for bird populations that are already stressed by habitat loss and other factors, an additional 11% mortality at the nest stage can be the difference between a stable population and a declining one. The destruction isn't limited to direct predation. Hogs also destroy the habitat that these species need. When they root up vegetation, they eliminate the ground cover that small animals use for shelter and nesting. When they damage wetlands through wallowing and feeding, they destroy habitat for amphibians, waterfowl, and countless invertebrate species. The effect is a general decline in biodiversity. Where hogs are active, you see fewer species and smaller populations of the species that remain. Perhaps the most alarming aspect of the feral hog problem is their role as disease vectors. These animals carry a concerning array of pathogens that can affect livestock, pets, and humans. Swine brucellosis is one of the more serious diseases. It's a bacterial infection that can be transmitted to humans who handle infected hog carcasses, particularly during butchering. Hunters who cut themselves while field dressing a hog are at risk. The disease causes flu-like symptoms, including fever, fatigue, and body aches that can persist for months or even years if not treated properly. In severe cases, it can cause permanent complications, including infertility and chronic joint problems. Pseudorabies, despite its name, isn't related to rabies, but it's still a serious concern for domestic animals. It can be fatal to dogs and cats that come into contact with infected hogs. Tuberculosis has been documented in feral hog populations, raising concerns about transmission to cattle and humans. The list goes on, including various parasites and bacterial infections. The nightmare scenario that keeps agricultural officials awake at night is African swine fever. This viral disease is devastating to domestic pigs, with mortality rates approaching 100% in naive populations. It hasn't reached the United States yet, but it's been spreading through Asia and parts of Europe. If it were to arrive in the US and establish itself in the feral hog population, it would be virtually impossible to eradicate. The domestic pork industry, worth billions of dollars, could collapse. The disease doesn't affect humans, but the economic and food security implications would be catastrophic. The threat is real enough that there are serious discussions happening at the federal level about how to prevent African swine fever from reaching feral hog populations and what the response would be if it dared. There's a genuine fear that the feral hogs represent not just a current problem, but a potential vector for a crisis that could dwarf what we're currently experiencing. Given the scale and severity of the feral hog problem in Texas, you might expect there to be extensive regulations and restrictions around how they can be controlled. The reality is quite the opposite. Texas has essentially declared open season on these animals with very few legal limitations. The classification is crucial here. Feral hogs are designated as unprotected non-game animals under Texas law. This means they exist in a unique legal category that allows for aggressive control measures that would be illegal for almost any other wildlife species. There is no closed season for hunting feral hogs. You can pursue them in January, in June, or any other month of the year. There's no bag limit either. You can kill 1 hog or 100 in a single day without violating any regulations. This might sound extreme, but it reflects the desperation of the situation. Traditional wildlife management focuses on maintaining sustainable populations of game animals. With feral hogs, the goal is the complete opposite. The regulations became even more relaxed in September of 2019, when Texas eliminated the hunting license requirement for feral hogs on private property. If you have the landowner's permission, you don't need any kind of license or permit to hunt hogs on private land. It doesn't matter whether you're a Texas resident or visiting from another state or country. The idea is to encourage as many people as possible to kill as many hogs as possible. The methods allowed for taking hogs are similarly broad. You can hunt them during daylight hours with conventional firearms or archery equipment. You can hunt them at night using artificial lights, thermal imaging scopes, or night vision equipment. Night hunting is actually one of the more effective approaches because hogs are primarily nocturnal. They do most of their feeding and moving under cover of darkness. Trapping is legal and actively encouraged. You can use box traps, corral traps, snares, and various other capture methods. Some landowners have invested heavily in sophisticated trapping systems, some of which can be monitored and controlled remotely via smartphone apps. The technology has advanced significantly in recent years, allowing trappers to see in real time when hogs enter a trap and to trigger the gate closure from wherever they happen to be. The most dramatic and publicly visible control method is aerial gunning from helicopters. This requires a special permit from Texas Parks and Wildlife, and it's expensive, but it's become increasingly popular among those who can afford it. The helicopter allows access to vast areas of land quickly, and it provides a vantage point that makes spotting hogs much easier. Videos of these operations have gone viral on social media, showing what looks like military-style operations against wildlife. But here's the uncomfortable truth that emerges when you look closely at the numbers. Even with all of these methods available, even with essentially no restrictions on when or how hogs can be killed, it's not enough. The fundamental problem is mathematical. Feral hogs reproduce so quickly that removal efforts struggle to keep pace with population growth. Biologists have calculated what they call the threshold removal rate. This is the percentage of the population that needs to be killed each year just to keep the numbers stable. For feral hogs in Texas, that number is approximately 70%. Think about what that means. If you kill 7 out of every 10 hogs in an area, the population will return to its previous level within 1 to 2 years. You're not reducing the population at that removal rate, you're just barely holding it steady. Trapping has emerged as one of the most effective methods for achieving high removal rates, but it needs to be done correctly. Small box traps that capture 1 or 2 animals at a time are largely ineffective because they make the remaining hog's trap shy. The more effective approach is called whole sounder removal, and it requires larger corral-style traps. The technique involves baiting the trap with corn or other attractive food and leaving it open for days or even weeks. Only when the entire family group is inside the trap at the same time does the trapper trigger the gate. What's becoming clear to wildlife managers and researchers is that no single method will solve the problem. The approach that shows the most promise is called integrated pest management. This involves using every available tool in combination. You start with intensive trapping to remove as many animals as possible from an area. Then you use hunting pressure to take out animals that evaded the traps. You maintain constant pressure, never letting the population recover. But this level of effort requires resources that most individual landowners simply don't have, and cooperation across property boundaries that's difficult to achieve. The hogs are here, they're spreading, and despite killing hundreds of thousands of them every year, their numbers continue to grow.